أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Everybody, welcome to our latest Converts podcast, in which we sit down with converts to Islam to find out about their journeys to Islam before, during, and after. And today we are privileged and honored to welcome a much loved and respected member of the British Muslim community who converted to Islam over 2 decades ago, mashallah. He's also a world-respected figure in the wider combat and martial arts scene in the UK and beyond, because he is a master of Wing Chun, the popular Chinese martial art, with a very prestigious chain of learning, having been a direct disciple of Yip Man, the son of Yip Man, the Grand Master who taught the famous Bruce Lee much of what he knew. So, Sifu Abdul Malik, it's a pleasure to be here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
I think viewers are going to have a dual interest in your story, because on the one hand, people are going to be fascinated by your journey into martial arts, and also going to be fascinated about your journey into Islam, perhaps seen in ways in which they are interconnected.
Okay.
But before we start, I just want to clarify some terminology for the viewers.
Sure.
What is a Sifu, and what is Wing Chun?
Okay. The word Sifu comes from two words,
right?
And but basically it's broken into 2 syllables, si and fu.
Right.
For the word Sifu comes from the word lo si, which means teacher, and the word fu comes from the word fu chan, which is the formal way of saying father in Cantonese. So the term is like teacher, father. Loosely translated as master, right? But it's not the master in the sense of where someone is an owner of somebody or something, and then the person is a servant or a slave. Nothing like that. It's more in the sense of of when you've mastered a skill, right? So plumbers, carpenters, builders, bakers, all known as Sifus in Chinese sort of like culture. They're actually called Sifus. Like you have a master builder and you have a master electrician, right? Even here, you know, because it's a skill. And obviously what they teach their skills to their apprentices, and they're known in Chinese as Todai, which can be translated as the disciple or apprentice. But the Sifu in Chinese martial art is a very prestigious title. If someone knows that you're a martial arts Sifu, then you're really given a lot of respect, because it's known in their culture. It's not just about fighting. You know what I mean? It's you're in a sense supposed to be a role model. Right. It's not the same as like being a coach or a trainer. It's nothing like this.
So it has like a moral element or an ethical element to it as well?
Yeah, 100%. There's when you're a Sifu, traditionally what will happen is when you take on students, they're not really classed as students. They call it in Cantonese "sao ge tou dai," which means you adopt a follower, right? So the Sifu will be there, and often the student will come and want to learn his skill. Then if the student accepts him as a student, right, then obviously he would promise to teach him everything he knows, and the student's job is to learn everything, because he will be essentially passing on to the next generation. So Sifus, they will pick their traditionally they should pick their students very, very carefully. You know, not just anyone would be taught by the Sifu.
What are they looking for in the student? What type of qualities?
Well, first of all, right, is you can be a blank sheet and you can be a rough canvas, but there has to be a sense of, number one, honesty. You have to be a very sort of like humble person. It's no point coming to the teacher and as if you already know something, you know. And that's why you hear the famous saying said by Bruce Lee, right? You have to empty your cup.
Right.
You don't come with a half full cup, or or even if you've got previous martial arts experience and you want to learn this skill from this particular Sifu, and say, listen, oh, can you just patch up, almost like patch up my jumper? No, throw away your jumper and I'll stitch you a new one. That's the job of the Sifu. And the student, he has to be humble enough to say, listen, look, I've come to you because you have a skill that I need or I want to learn. So I'm going to humble myself under your teachings and follow you to learn this skill.
And will the student also look for certain like qualities in the master, in the teacher, in order to want to go towards him? Because what struck me, I watched a previous podcast in which you had done, and you mentioned that you wouldn't have gone to your teacher had you not found him to be a righteous man.
There's that. I mean, in nowadays, right, it's not the case, is it? You know,
Right.
in nowadays, not the case. But and you're talking about, say, 40 years ago when I begun, we didn't have this, we didn't have YouTube and all the social media, and you can see everything, and you can see everybody, and it's all out there. Right, because everyone's basically is putting their wares out there. So the student believes, oh, that's all I need to do. See someone do something very skillful, and that means he's good. In our day, we had to check things like, number one, before you even met the person, his lineage. Right, who was he taught by? Did he complete the system with this particular teacher? And who was his teacher and who was his teacher? So just like in Islam, there was an isnad. There was a chain going back to the founder. Then obviously when you went with the Sifu, what type? Yes, you could be very good at your martial art, but what type of person is he? You know what I mean? Is he a patient person? So you might go and view the school, and you see the way he teaches his students. If I don't really think I want to follow a guy like this because he's very harsh. He's very, you know, and that you had that in the back in the past. Some teachers were very, very harsh. Right, and then obviously, right, his character, you know, I mean, which you mentioned, which is very, very important. You can't be a Sifu if your character is not right. Especially with the Wing Chun system, we have a saying: "A sambating kun bating." If your heart isn't straight, your fist won't be straight. Right. So you know, you look at the Sifu's character. Is he an honest person? You know, is he a righteous person? Is he a patient person? All these kind of things, right? Because you might not be a fast learner, you know, you might be a slow learner, and then you would make the decision to follow this particular Sifu.
Do you want to explain about Wing Chun? How does it differ from other forms of martial arts, or like popular MMA, for example, in today's times?
Wing Chun system is a martial arts system, obviously from southern China, but it's based on two key principles. Right, you know, like Islam has 5 in it, but Wing Chun is 2, and it's economy of motion and conservation of energy. So everything we do in Wing Chun, it's got to be economical. Number one, so the techniques, right, are not about wasting time. So if the shortness between 2 points is a straight line, so most of my techniques will be striking straight. There won't be hooking, there won't be large jumping kicks and anything that's gonna take a long period of time. Number one. Number two, if my opponent attacks me, right, I use it as an opportunity to hit him. Whereas most martial arts systems, if someone attacks you, they'll block it and they hit back. Wing Chun, we'll block and hit at the same time, or we'll just hit you. Understanding that, you know, pain is the incentive that's going to stop your opponent. You know what I mean? So we want you to register pain straight away. So it's very economical. So again, in Wing Chun, we have another saying, you know, kun mo liang, quan mo learn hang. Basically, the fist has no manners, right? So if we decide that you're going to do your martial arts self-defense, then you have to be willing to go all the way. Otherwise, if you're not about that life, just try to avoid the situation the best you can. That's okay to do. And then the conservation of energy, right, is if someone's stronger than me, I'm not going to stand there wrestling with them. And so if he's pushing, I'm going to pull. If he pulls, I'm going to push. That sort of thing. I'm not going to wrestle with you. So Wing Chun is all about conserving energy. So try to get the job done as quickly as possible and get out of there. You know, because fighting isn't, for us, is an uncivilized action, only done when necessary. We don't look for it. So therefore, you won't see Wing Chun competitions. You know, it's not for that. It's purely for the way I was taught it and the way I teach my students. Purely for street self-defense only.
Right. Speaking of street self-defense in today's times, you know, with knife crime and zombie knives and stuff like that, what would you advise somebody in those type of situations if confronted with that?
running is always a good, technique to perfect.
That's for
you know
sure.
what I mean? And some people might have this idea, right, that you can learn martial arts and you can do some Steven Seagal stuff and take care of, people with a sword. This is absolute nonsense. Even with training, you can get cut.
Yeah.
So for us, the way we train our martial arts is just look, if someone gets in your face and confronts you, always assume that he has a weapon on him. Mm-hmm. So don't let him arm himself. If he's going into his pocket to get something, you've got to take him out. Mm-hmm. But if once he arms himself, now you're in another situation, right? And that situation requires a high level of skill, and you still might get cut. Mm-hmm. Remember, it's a knife, right? Give it some respect. Yeah. Right? Don't think you're going to stand there and stop a knife and lock someone, all this kind of business. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Speaking from a man, I'm not practicing. I've been stabbed twice. You just don't want to get involved in that sort of situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've jumped in speaking about martial arts and Wing Chun, but let's take you back now to your upbringing. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Any significant events in your early life which kind of shaped you as a person?
Okay. Well, I was born and bred in Hackney in London. Yeah. Actually, it was Hackney Hospital, but it's now Homerton Hospital. Right. And I'm raised in Clapton and the Stoke Newington area as a child. And so I was born in 1965. So you can say around about in the mid-70s, early mid-70s, went to school. And when I went to secondary school at 1976, at that time, Hackney was a very racist area. Mm-hmm. We had the National Front. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Maybe some of the people here may have heard of it. But we had a National Front, and if you walked in a certain area, then you just got the news from they would just attack you and they'll beat you up, sort of thing. And also we had another enemy, and that was the police. Yeah. The police were very, 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 very anti-black then. Yeah. Should I even say were? But they were very, very anti-black then, right? And if you walked in the street, the stop and search, right, was just like the norm for you. Mm-hmm. I lost how many times that happened to me, right? And if you gave a little bit of lip or whenever, then just expect to get put in the Black Mariah at the back and beaten up. You know what I mean? Yeah. My younger brother almost lost his eye. They said that was the situation that you was in, right, in Hackney growing up. So the thing was, you had to be able to put your hands up. Yeah. You had to be able to fight. Yeah.
Wasn't as diverse as it is now then at that time?
No, Hackney now, right, is very, 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 it's gentrified. Oh, yeah. It's a completely different area now. I mean, if you ever go through there now, you've got, the population, especially around Stoke Newington area and those areas, right, is very, very sort of like relaxed and chilled. And, but it still has its pockets, as I think most areas do.
So did you have any experiences in that, growing up in that environment, which kind of shaped you?
Yes. Now I say this, right, but sometimes I don't talk about this too much, because sometimes a lot of the young people, right, they enjoy this stuff. So, but I say it to say, listen, look, you don't want to be walking this path. Mm-hmm. For us in those days, right, it was a matter of survival. Yeah, right, it was a matter of survival, right. So, I've had some experience. A lot of it, right, was I put my own self in that because I had I wasn't a naughty child, right, but I didn't take nonsense from anybody. Mm-hmm. So if someone gave me some lip, I'd give them lip back. Mm-hmm. And on one occasion when I was 15, this was a turning point in my life, to be quite truthful. I was walking through Hoxton, and that time, right, Hoxton, right, was the NF area. You know what I mean? You just couldn't go in that area. But I thought, I just walk anywhere I like. And I walked through there, and I was walking through, and there was this group of racists, you might call them, right? And they were looking at me, and they said to me, "Who are you looking at?" And they used the N word, and I said, "Looking at you guys." Who do you think? So then they just chased me, and then I ran into this pub for to try and get saved, and they just threw me out. And then they just beat living dates out of me. When that happened to me, I said that can never happen to me again. Yeah. Hence why I really intensified my training in my martial arts training then. So that made me.
You had started prior to that event?
Before that, yeah, I was doing judo and taekwondo at the time. Right. right? But it was just, you know, it was mainly because of being raised on the martial art movies and stuff like that. And, you know, so I did it for that reason. In our days, we didn't have phones, you know, we didn't have that sort of thing. The martial arts was our toys, you know, just messing around and playing and sparring and playing with martial arts. That was how we had fun. You know what I mean? We didn't play, you know, these martial art combat games that we get kids do now. We actually did it for real. But then if we had to fight, we'd fight. But in that situation, you know, 6-7 people jump on you. You know what I mean? You know, what do you do? You know, I got my ribs broke and stuff like that. And that changed my outlook, my training. And afterwards, I really started looking for, you know, something more combative. Right. And that was the Wing Chun. But Wing Chun then wasn't taught to non-Chinese at the day. You know, there's very few schools taught non-Chinese.
Right. So how did you make that transition to get access to proper teachers in Wing Chun?
How I did it is, well, first of all, right, I was trying to look for Wing Chun. I couldn't find it anywhere. Then there's a TV program called The Way of the Warrior, and I saw my first teacher on that one. And I started training with him, to cut a long story short. Then I trained with, I was with him for 8 years. And then after 8 years, I was training with him, but nothing was even coming back from him. And so I thought, I'm going to have to change route. You know what I mean? If I really want to learn this art properly that I love, right, then I ain't going to learn it here in this country. So I started taking Cantonese lessons, you know, and I did that for about 4 years with the hope of one day going to, you know, to Hong Kong.
Amazing. Where did you take the lessons?
It was in, my first teacher had a little school in Covent Garden, quite close to Chinatown. And actually my first student wasn't Chinese. He's a African guy called Victor Apaya. Right. You know, amazing Cantonese language. And, you know, you could never tell that he was Chinese if he was black, if you didn't see his face. Right. Anyway, I studied with him, right, for a few years. And I trained, and then I studied with his teacher as well. Right. And I went to the Westminster University, and I took some lessons there, really immersed myself. I also worked at a couple of you know, Chinese community centres doing voluntary work, just to mix with Chinese and use my Cantonese as much as possible. So then when the Grand Masters used to come over to do seminars, I probably went to them really just to practice my Cantonese. But one opportunity, I met my current Sifu, who has passed away now. He came into Chinatown. This is all before Islam. He came into Chinatown to have something to eat, and I was in there with my students. And then you know, we bumped into each other, and we was introduced. Right. And then I started speaking to him in Cantonese, and he was so happy because he's sitting on this table with all these other people who can't speak to him in his language, and one Chinese guy doing the translating, and he just felt a little bit bored. And when I started speaking to him, he's like so happy. Must have been shocked as well. He was very shocked. He was very shocked. You know, the main thing was just happy, and he asked the guy next to him, "Do you mind just moving? Can he sit here?" So I sat there, and we had a long conversation. He said, "Listen, if you're in Hong Kong, come and look me up." Yeah. And I booked my flight that night. Awesome. And 2 months later, I was in Hong Kong.
Wow. So what was that like when you got there?
Came off the plane, you know, went and stayed where I was staying. And then they sent someone to pick me up from where I was staying to take me to the school. So I'm thinking, all right, now I'm going to go and meet the Grandmaster, and I'm going to train and stuff like this. And then this dude is taking me to see all these other masters. I said, well, I've not come here to see these masters. I've come here to see Yip Ching. Yeah. So he's taking me to all these different, you know, Chinese masters. I'm looking at their stuff, and they're trying to show me their Wing Chun, and you know, over there they want to have an international student. If they say they had a student come from the UK to train with them, it gives them credence. All right. So he's taking me to all these different, you know, grandmasters, all of them very, very good. But I'm thinking, I just want to train with Yip Ching, right? So in the end, right, after a week, and I only booked for 2 weeks, right? And after a week of meeting all these other people, he takes me to see Yip Ching, and I'm upset now. Yeah. I'm upset now. So I say to him, I said, Sifu, why do you... He said, I just wanted to make sure you really wanted my Wing Chun. If you went anywhere else, then it would have been fine. If you went there, it would have been fine, but I want to make sure that you want me. So I let you see everyone else first, and if you went there, that's fine. But now we can start the training. Right, nice. And obviously then we came in... Then that was in the HQ, I mean, in the Athletic Association. We trained there, but that wasn't really training. I was just getting beaten up by everyone inside there. You know what I mean, for the first session. And I said to Sifu, I don't want to learn this way. I said, if I want to learn from you, I want to learn directly one-to-one with you. I said, okay, then no problem. So I had all my lessons with him after that privately.
Amazing.
You know, in his home. My lessons were actually in the home where Yip Man lived. You know what I mean, and where he died. So that's where
Wow.
that's where my.
Do you want to explain to the viewers maybe who Yip Man was and his significance? Maybe people don't understand his background.
Okay, everyone's seen the Yip Man movies, right, with Donnie Yen. Okay, and some people might know that Yip Man was the teacher of Bruce Lee. But Yip Man was you could say the last great grandmaster of Wing Chun. If it wasn't really for what he did, right, I think no one probably wouldn't have heard of Wing Chun in the world, to be quite truthful. Because after he left China to come to Hong Kong, he had no plans of teaching Wing Chun at all, because he was a very wealthy man. He did Wing Chun for himself and just for his, like a lot of the grandmasters, they don't really want to teach. But because he lost his wealth after the Japanese invaded China, right, and he had to flee China to come to Hong Kong. He had no wealth. He said, okay, then what am I going to do? I only got this one skill, so I'll teach Wing Chun. He started teaching Wing Chun in Hong Kong. And from there, he taught many top fighters. One of them was a guy was a Sifu called Wong Song Leung. He's known as the #1 fist, had over 500 bouts and never lost any. And the other one was a young kid called Bruce Lee. Right, and obviously we know what happened with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee eventually, when he's 18, 19, he had to go to the US. And from there, right, he didn't even complete the Wing Chun system, but he had to go back to the US because to sort of like, to do his American citizenship. He went back to the US, and then from there, he just met other martial artists, and it exploded from there, and then that was it.
It's all very fascinating. So this, how old are you at this time, and where were you spiritually?
Well, at that time when that was happening, right, I wasn't even born yet.
No, so I'm going back to like when you were in Hong Kong now. So.
Oh, okay. Hong Kong, right? I was spiritually, right. I was with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. And how old were you when you were in Hong Kong now?
I went to Hong Kong when I was. Let me see what age I was. God, there. So I'm trying to remember my age, right? Because I'm almost 60 now, right? So alhamdulillah, it's boy. Yeah, I went to Hong Kong when I was about 34 years old.
Right, okay. Cool.
34 years old, yes.
Okay, cool.
So that time I was still with the Jehovah's Witnesses and very, very involved with them, and that was my way, for a long time. But I still had a little problem with the teachers, because some of the stuff they were doing wasn't really working with my fitra. Right. I.e., to be a Jehovah's Witness, you can't practice martial arts. Right. Right, and nothing. Just the way how I was raised, as I was raised in our family. Someone hits you, you don't turn no other cheek. You know what I mean? You're not doing that business. You fight back. And the ways in my day, if we had a fight and we told our dad we lost, we get worse from my dad. So I said we had to be able to put our hands up. So I had a problem with that, side of things. But yeah, I was still believing in that. But that was the way, And also, right, when I used to meet other Christians, from Seventh Days Adventists, Catholics, whatever they were, Pentecostal, you can sit and you can talk with them, and you can always deal with them, because the one thing with Jehovah's Witnesses, right, you can say they really study their Bible. Because they study, because they're going to go out there and talk to people. So they try to get them very, very fit and ready, with Bible verses and stuff like this, that they can regurgitate and deal with most people out there. Back in those days, we didn't have what we had now with the information. So their form of Dawah was working a lot among the Christians, a lot.
Do you want to explain to people what the difference is between the beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses and mainstream Christianity regarding Jesus, peace be upon him?
Okay, well, Jehovah's Witnesses, right, their belief is they were like a Unitarian Christians, meaning, right, they believe that there's one God, and they believe everything else is subordinate to God. So they look at Jesus, right, they still call him the Son of God, but they don't believe he is God. Right. They believe the Almighty God, right, is Jehovah, right, and Jesus, right, it was created by Jehovah, right, and but he was his first creation, right, and so therefore that's why he's called his son, and that's basically it, really. But I would say their Aqidah is still the same. You know what I mean? When they're fact, right, they believe, right, that Jesus died for the sins of mankind and, you know, all this sort of thing.
But they're taking their belief directly from the Bible, you're saying. So they're studying Bible verses and they're coming to the conclusion that the Bible doesn't say that Jesus was God himself, but he was just a created son of God.
That's right. And the one thing about them, they will always go to Bible verses. They won't really go to, like you go with most people, when you're talking to Christians, they go to church teachings as opposed to Bible teachings. Right? They will pick up a Bible and they go from the Bible. You know what I mean? As much as they can, but they still have a script that they stick to.
I think it's interesting because also it shows, you know, the various ways in which people can interpret the Bible. I mean, historically they had different movements early on in Christianity before Orthodoxy took place. You know, so they had the Arianism movement, which was very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. They had the Unitarian movements, and then finally, you know, the Trinitarian conception was the one which became Orthodoxy. Yeah,
because the Jehovah's Witnesses really, how they came about really is actually it's a split between. We have the Seventh Day Adventists, right, and the actual and what you call what's now modern day Jehovah's Witnessism, because they just really differed on one aspect, and that was the Trinity. And so they split because of that. Because Jehovah's say, listen, look, there's no things of Trinity. You know, it's no we mentioned the Bible, and they split for that, and that's how the two sides really formed.
Interesting. So how did you first come in contact with Islam, and what was the attraction of Islam to you?
But at first, there was no attraction really, because no one in those days, right, never really came and gave you dawah, right? But I had one friend, another brother who's a Wing Chun teacher himself, right? Brother Yip Man, right? Me and him used to talk, you know, the differences in our religion, and I never knew enough about what he knew, and he never knew enough about what we knew. So we always just agreed to disagree. Right, I was arguing the case, right, and he was arguing his case, you know. But what I then did was I said, listen, this brother's really arguing his case, and he really believes it, right? And I really believe he's sincere in his belief, right? And here's the thing, right, you know, and which is a lesson what I learned now. There's many people out there, right, who sincerely believe that they're on truth.
Definitely.
You know, so we shouldn't really beat up on them, right? You know, but so me being a Christian back then, I was thinking, oh, this guy really believes what he believes, and I said, what if he's right and I'm wrong? You know, so that's because we always agree to disagree. So, but what if? Okay, I better study more about this, what he's on. So the more I read about Islam, the more I liked what I was reading. Right. So what I did, I started to sort of adopt some of the, you know, so-called Muslim practices, right? Straight away, when I was 29 years old, when I had a circumcision, to go get a circumcision, stop eating pork, started this sort of thing, and started wearing one of these, you know what I mean, everything. This is all before I did any shahada or anything like this. And then...
what was it that appealed to you about things at that time?
About
you know, these practices which you took on, why take them on when you're still a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, but at that time, I had used to have a Jehovah's Witnesses, but I had stopped going to the Kingdom Hall because one thing I didn't want to be a hypocrite. So once I started going this way, I didn't go to the Kingdom Hall anymore. I just didn't go anymore. And but why I did that, because I thought, well, those are like Muslim identities. Wear this, you know, have a beard, you know what I mean? You know, I had a circumcision, stuff like this, right? Don't eat pork, you know, that sort of stuff. And I thought that's what brought you in. So one day what happened, some Muslim students of mine came to my school and said, look, we heard about your Wing Chun and we really want to study with you, but we want to study privately with you, right, as a group. I said, yeah, no problem. So they used to come and train me for about a year privately. And then one of them, Brother Shamin it was, right, said to me, you know, Sifu, you know, are you a Muslim? I said, no, I'm not a Muslim. Because, but you've got a lot of Muslim qualities about you, you know, the way you move and the way you know, have you ever thought about becoming a Muslim? I said, yeah, I thought about it. He said, okay, so, and he went through some Aqidah points with me. And then next thing you know, I was taking my shahada.
MashaAllah. And how old was you at this time?
That again, I was around about 34 years old as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So shortly after you came back from
From Hong Kong, yeah.
You took, mashallah, amazing. So how was the initial journey after you took the Shahada? And how was it kind of like, did it interplay in any way with your advancing skills in Wing Chun? How did they, kind of balance the two?
Okay, let's say when I first took the Shahada, right? You have that honeymoon period.
Sure.
Right. So everyone loves you. Everyone's like, yes, Assalamu alaikum, and you're getting the hug, and everyone feels pleased, and everyone's like it's like having a party. We've got a new brother, and that's nice. And then all of a sudden, after that, it went quiet. Mm-hmm. It went quiet, right? No one came and taught me how to do salah. I used to just go. When they prayed, I used to stand in the line and I just followed like this and did the thing, right? No one gave me any literature, and then so I just followed. Around this time, right, Abdul Rahim started coming to the school, right, and training with me in the Wing Chun, and then I started doing some lessons, teaching the kids at Islamic Shakhsiya, the school where his children used to go to. Right. But no one still, assisted me with anything. And then, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to meet my brother, right, who at the time, who was just a Hafiz of Quran, but he's the one who I now call my sheikh, right, came to the school to study under me. He was only 19 years old then, right, and he studied in the school for a little bit. Then he said, see if I want to train privately with you. I said, yeah, fine. So we started training privately, and then it came to Salah time. And he said, so it's time for Zuhr, Sifu. I mean, and I'm going to do the adhan and you can lead the prayer. I said, what do you mean by leading the prayer? He goes, what, Sifu, you're the head of the household. And not only that, Sifu, because of who you are, you know what I mean? You don't know how to pray. I said, well, I've followed people. He said, okay, I'm going to make it my business to teach you. Okay. So I said, okay, then you teach me the Deen, I'll teach you Wing Chun. So we had that swap, and I had a better deal. And that happened right for about 4 years.
Amazing.
Where he came to me every single day, and I taught him Wing Chun. He completed the Wing Chun system in those 4 years, everything. And I learned the Deen from him. Right. Then he went to study in Egypt and places like that. Wow. That was a long time ago now.
Wow, amazing. Some people say that like martial arts is like a system or like a way of life, but then people say Islam is a way of life. I mean, how would you compare the difference between the two?
I wouldn't really call, a martial art a way of life, myself personally. But for those people who want to take it as a way of life, you can do. Some people might look at the way how I lead my life and say, listen, look, you're a martial artist and it's your way of life, And sometimes I even say it's a way of life for me, because I am a martial artist. Alhamdulillah, I'm not a partial artist. This is all I do. You know what I mean? This, and I live this art. So for some people, right, something they do every Tuesday and Thursday, or it's like a hobby for them, right? However, martial arts is a tool, right? You learn it for a reason. And like I always say to my students, it's something that you're learning that you hope you never, ever have to use. Yeah. It's probably the only thing you're going to learn which you hope you never, ever have to use. Yeah. Like I said, it's uncivilized action, done when necessary. But when it came to the Deen, now this is a proper way of life, because it conducts your whole affairs, I mean, how you deal with your family, how you deal with your friends, how you deal with your enemies, how you deal with people in business, how you deal with all aspects of your life, everything. So that's a way of life. Martial arts is only in one aspect, which is to defend yourself when you're in trouble. Also, once you learn a skill, to pass it on to others so they can obviously benefit themselves, right, in that way. But other aspects of life it's not really about that.
People also seem to say that martial arts are used to train not just your body but your mind. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. But it all depends on the teacher you got. If you ain't got a good teacher, then it's not going to happen for you, right? Like my Sifu used to say, right, you need to find a good teacher and a good student, then something will grow. You've got a bad teacher and good student, nothing can happen. You've got a great teacher and a bad student, nothing's still going to happen. You need the two, right? So a good teacher, right, is not just going to teach someone how to kick and punch. He's going to teach them why, when, and how. and also when not to. You know what I mean?
Could we say that like martial arts are good for training your body and your mind, but like it's lacking when it comes to your soul, to your spirit? It doesn't have like a because ultimately spiritually we want to recognize our Creator, be connected with our Creator, have a role model in terms of moral guidance, in terms of how to live. And so maybe that is only found in religion, only found in Islam, unlike martial arts, which is more of a tool, like you were saying.
It is more of a tool, right? However, right, there are still some parallels, right? If you look at in Wing Chun, there's 9 laws or 9 rules that you have, and a lot of that, right, is very Islamic. A lot of it is very Islamic, right? You know, how to be a good person in society and with your community. You know, how to control your desires. You know, how to be good to your brothers and how to avoid conflicts and stuff like this. All these sort of things you find in Islam.
Yeah.
However, there's not this aspect, right, of creator. There's not in there because of the purpose of it is not about that. The purpose is to ultimately be able to take care of yourself with someone or the weak.
Yeah, right.
Ultimately,
right. Do you find that you found like a peace and a tranquility in Islam which you didn't find in martial arts?
I find peace and tranquility in Islam, but I didn't look for peace and tranquility in the martial arts.
Right.
Yeah, the martial arts for me, like I said, it was a tool.
Right.
Right. However, it was a tool. How can I say, to protect my peace? Because as the saying goes, if you want peace, you have to prepare for war. Right. So then, when you're a martial artist, right, you know, if you're strong and you're in shape and you can take care of yourself, you feel more safe. Where if someone, right, who feels they can't handle themselves, right, they always feel agitated and what am I going to do now, sort of thing, right? But can I handle the situation, whatever? But if you're a trained martial artist and you've really high level trained, you don't have that sense of danger all the time, right? In that way. But the peace, what you talk about Islam, is more like an inner peace, right? It's more like a sense of contentment, you know, with things going on around you. So if things go bad, you know, as we're told to be patient. And when things are good, we're told to be thankful, right? And in that sort of way, right, you know, I'm more at peace.
Right. Something that you mentioned reminded me of a podcast you gave before in the past. You were talking about self-control. And in this previous podcast, you were mentioning how you was a bit of a firebrand when you was younger. You had a bit of a hot temper. And but you managed to control that through the Deen, through Islam. Do you want to explain about that, your journey in that sense?
Yeah, this is still ongoing for me. You know,
all of us.
This is ongoing for me, right? I mean, hot temper, not a fast temper.
Right.
I wasn't quick to fly off the handle. That wasn't me. But when I, you know, I'm not really proud to say when I go, I can't stop.
Right.
So I just can't stop. I know that about me. You know, so what Islam helped me with is the fasting.
Right.
You know, that really helps me to put things under control. So alhamdulillah, I do a lot of that. I do a lot of fasting, alhamdulillah. But the martial arts, the reason why I practiced that, because in my younger days, especially as a child growing up, I was fighting all the time.
Yeah.
You know, because I just that was just me. I was just fighting all the time. But I didn't know how to fight. So therefore I had to learn how to fight so I could take care of matters quicker or better, sort of thing.
Sure. You must be aware of that. I'm sure you've come across it as someone involved in martial arts. The famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, "Laysa shadid bisur'a, innama shadid alladhi yamliku nafsahu in al-ghadab." You know, that the strong person isn't the one who's like wrestling and winning wrestling, but he's somebody who controls himself when angry.
Yeah, and martial arts is about that as well. You know, to be quite truthful, because what you try to do as a martial artist. It's like it's when you're actually in the flow of combat, and you know you can be physically aggressive, extremely aggressive, but you have to be mentally under control, because you can't be out of control. The only way I can, and that's what martial arts is all about, really. You know, it's about control, right? In Islam, it's about controlling your nafs, and rather than your nafs controlling you. In martial arts, it's really about controlling that self about you. It could be controlling your fear, right? If you're afraid of your opponent. Right, we all have fear, But if you're afraid of your opponent, you ain't going to defend yourself. Some people, the fear will make them not even come out the front door. For martial artists, it's more like, listen, I've got to get ready.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what happened. We had the recent events, right, where there were the riots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For me, I was in the gym training like a maniac because I thought I've got to get ready.
Right.
But some people, I ain't going to go out the front door. You know what I mean? That's martial arts. So the main thing is get myself under control first, right? Because a lot of people, when they get into fights, is because they got them in a situation they couldn't handle and they lost control. How many times have you seen it with road rage?
Yeah.
You know, why are you getting involved with road rage with this idiot for? Just drive your car. You know, but we find ourselves getting involved in this stuff and say, I can't believe I did that. That's because, you know, we lost control.
Yeah.
So that puts me in the mind of the hadith you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, we control ourselves first.
Yeah, mashallah. You have a wealth of experience and lessons that you've learnt, mashallah. We want you to share, if you don't mind, with the viewers a few things. There's a couple of things I have in mind. I really like the way that you said that you reflected when you stood at Jehovah's Witness and you said to yourself, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
I think that it's a very rare quality. You know, what would you say to people who perhaps they're not Muslim? You know, they may be Jehovah's Witnesses, they may be Christians, they may be people of other faith or no faith. You know, what would you say to people like that to encourage them to think about their particular worldview and perhaps, you know, realize that there can be there might be another truth?
Well, the first thing is alhamdulillah, Allah's given us this grey matter in our head called a brain.
Yeah.
Right, and we should use it.
Yeah.
Right, and if there's something we don't know, you know, ask. Don't pretend that you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes don't just be wrong and strong and just fight your cause just because you're just raised that way. Now I've spoken to many Jehovah's Witnesses after becoming Muslim. Yeah. Many and other factions of Christianity, and I've sat down with them and I had the conversation with them. Yeah. And you know what they said to me? They said, "Listen, you know what? You make a lot of sense. You make a lot of sense, and that's so true. But I'm going to stay Christian." And for me, I'm baffed. Yeah. I'm baffed. Yeah, and then I have to remember, right, that Allah controls the hearts. For sure. You know what I mean? So that's, it's just, there's not everyone you're going to change. You know, you can come with a really compelling argument, and it's not going to happen, right? But then again, I always ask myself the question, right, is this, and a question that a lot of Muslims should ask themselves, when someone is sincerely on then they believe they're on the truth sincerely, right? What we in a sense ask them to do is leave what they're on. Yeah. Okay. It's not an easy thing to do. For sure. It's not an easy thing to do, right? So, you know, we shouldn't make light of it. And I remember for me, it wasn't, I didn't just become a Muslim like that. For many people, they got put up with a lot of stuff. So sometimes, like one sheikh asked me one time, he said, "Listen, look, Abdul Malik, you're a Muslim now?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Imagine this is what you're asking someone to do when you give dawah. Imagine someone came up to you and said, listen, look, if I can give you a compelling argument that what you're on is batil, would you leave it?" And I said to him straight, yeah, of course I would, because I did that with Christianity. Yeah. But if you ask many Muslims, they will say, well, I wouldn't leave it. Yeah. But you're expecting that guy to leave what he's on. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we have to be fair. We have to be fair, right? When we give him the dawah, right, it's not really, right, you know, what we're asking this person to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what that's one advice that I take away from it, right, is that the person on the other side, right, who's a non-believer, right, or not yet a Muslim, just ask questions and use your brain and say, listen, look, this makes a lot of sense, right? Then I should follow it, you know. And the one who's giving the dawah, have to also remember, listen, look, we're asking someone to do something that's very, very difficult, especially if they sincerely believe what they're on is truth. Sure. It's very, very difficult. And we should ask, would we be willing to do that? Yeah. That's a very good point. It's very hard. No, it is very good. I mean, what would you say? So somebody who's using their grey matter that God has given us, and they see that Islam, you know, is true, but now they're scared to make that step for whatever reason. And maybe there's a commitment involved. That they may think they have to do a lot of things or leave a lot of things. Yeah. What would you say in terms of encouragement to somebody who's at that stage? Sometimes, right. It depends who you're talking to, right? Even the dawah to. If it's someone who I know really well, right? Alhamdulillah, last week, before I was supposed to come down here last week, you know what I mean? I had a brother come and visit me, right, to sort of learn about Islam.
Right.
And I was really excited. Oh, I think he's going to take a shahada, right? And I said, no, control yourself, right? I mean, take the shahada, right? Just control yourself. Just, let him ask you and just talk to him. Anyway, as I was talking to him for about an hour, I realized to myself is, he ain't going to take the shahada tonight.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I thought, and I knew him really, really, really well. He was agreeing with every single point.
Yeah.
Then I could say to him, because I know, I said, listen, look, brother, you got one problem. You just don't want to submit. So I could say that to him.
Yeah.
So if you're agreeing with me, everything what I'm saying is right. Your problem is that you just want to, you just want to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't want to submit. He said, Sifu, you're right,
Right.
I said, okay, then we'll just submit that, what I mean? But don't say what's on is not the truth.
Sure.
Right? Your problem now, it's up to you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'll just leave him. There's no point in me trying to convince him or trying to try different. It might be someone else could give him the dawah, right? That's going to change him, that way. It's no my job to push him any further in that way.
Yeah.
If it's someone else, right, who if you're giving some street dawah. Another time I was embarking and some brothers, they got a dawah table there.
Yeah.
And I went past there, and one of the brothers wanted to give them salam. Said, "How did dawah go?" And they said, "Yeah, it's going fine." And and there was one there, right, who was a rabbleizer. He didn't really want to become a Muslim. He was just, heckling and stuff like this. So after then, one of the brothers at the table said, "Listen, look, see, he's a Muslim." Pointing to me, he's a Muslim, because he was another, black guy like me. Said, "He's a Muslim. Ask him."
Right.
So straight away it goes to me, how can you be a Muslim, right? How can you be a Muslim when Muhammad did this, Muhammad did that?
Right.
So I said, brother, it's easy. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, but you can't say. I said, I've said it. What are you going to do about that? I realized that this guy, you just can't reach this guy. And I have to say to these brothers, listen, brothers, I know you're on the dawah tip. Don't argue with him. You know what I mean? Don't argue with him. Because he's not ready.
Yeah.
You've got a guy over there, right? He looks like he's ready. Talk to him. I say, oh, Abdul Malik, you're right. And then you went and talked to him.
Yeah.
Some people are just not ready.
Yeah.
So you can't force that one.
Yeah.
Then you got people who might come to the table and they're really interested.
Yeah.
And then, but you're not going to get them that day. Leave them a number, or give them some literature, and then maybe they might come. Or take their number. Best thing is to take their number.
For sure.
Take the number and call them back.
Yeah.
Right. Then that's the way I usually go about it.
Oh, mashallah. The last thing, which is going to trouble you for, if you don't mind, is to you've been Muslim, mashallah, over 2 decades now. So obviously you've had the journey, of coming into Islam and then growing in Islam. What advice would you give to new converts now? They've come into Islam maybe a few weeks, few months, a year. Maybe they've struggled, journeys up and down. How would you encourage them, or what advice would you give to them to become stronger in their deen?
Okay. I think this one is probably the most important one, right, of all. And even if you are a Muslim, right, alhamdulillah, find a teacher. Yeah. Have a teacher. Don't try to teach yourself, and have someone qualified as well. You know what I mean? To teach you, right? Because I think what we don't have, right, in Islam, we don't have a chaperone service, right, where once someone's done a shahada, right, then there's people to see him afterwards and guide him through the thing. Sometimes we just take him straight to the masjid and leave him there. No, it is right now. Find a teacher, right? Someone to teach you the Deen, and take their time with you slowly, at your pace on a one-to-one, and really make you help you to understand really what's happening in the Book of Allah, rather than just picking up some literature and stuff like this, bit by bit, but really, go for it slowly. That's the first thing. The second thing is, right, for the person who's coming in, is don't listen to too many people at one time. Because I remember when I first came in, everyone wanted to give me advice. Right. Don't do this, do that. That's haram, that's halal, this, that. Right. And next thing you know, right, you think, oh my word, I feel bombarded. Right. And I've actually seen these people get pushed out of Islam because of this. Because it's just too heavy. Right. It's too heavy for me. Yeah. Right, no, don't do that. Right, so listen, look, just have this. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it, but I've got a teacher. Right. You know what I mean? I think those 3 things, and you should be okay. Yeah. You're coming in. Nice. Obviously doing your own individual study. And last one, which is probably very important, pray. Yeah. I remember not just a salah, actually dua and just make supplication to Allah and pray and ask Him to keep you steadfast and keep you on this path and continue to keep build your connection with your Lord.
Yeah.
That's I think is the most important thing.
Wonderful, mashallah. Sifu, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Really appreciate all of your words of wisdom and advice, and I'm sure the viewers, inshallah, will appreciate it as well.
And anything I said that is as good as from Allah, and anything I said bad is totally from me.
It's all been good, mashallah. So everyone, please follow, like, share this content, inshallah, with people that you think will benefit, and please look forward for future episodes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين